Okay, welcome to Video Game Vision Quest. This video is all about the new 41 pages of Game of Thrones that have been released, called The Sons of the Dragon, part of the Book of Swords collection, featuring a bunch of other stories that I'm sure are great. But it's Sons of the Dragon that we are here for, and all the weird revelations that come in this book. Sons of the Dragon is about the two sons of Aegon the Conqueror and everything they got up to after he passed them the crown. First, though, one thing to make clear about the pronunciation of one of the characters' names.
Aenys the First Targaryen.
That's right.
Aenys the First Targaryen.
Aenys Targaryen. I did not come up with this name. This is straight from the book.
Aenys the First Targaryen. Aenys the First Targaryen.
Now, there's definitely an argument to be made that his name is not actually Aenys Targaryen, but Aenys Targaryen, but let's be real. This book is about the second king of Westeros, Aenys Targaryen, and the third king of Westeros, Maegor the Cruel, who was really terrible. And it's another Maester's history, so they're covering a lot of ground, and it's from the perspective of a Maester years and years and years later, so there's also a lot of details that he's missing, and stuff that he doesn't know. And the key with all these backstories, all these Maester's prequels, is what they don't know and how they're slanting it. Yeah, they drop a lot of weird stuff in here. The very first thing, which pretty much blows me away straight off the bat, is by the end of the second paragraph, they've pretty much really heavily implied that Aenys Targaryen is not actually the son of Aegon the Conqueror, but the son of Queen Rhaenys and one of the children of the forest. Well, let me read the part I'm talking about. The boy was very small at birth. He cried all the time. His limbs were spindly. His eyes small and watery. So he sounds like a very skinny, kind of tiny kid. And which wouldn't be much on his own. That would kind of make me think of Robin Aaron. But because he was so small, there were people who thought, oh, this can't be Aegon. So there were rumors mentioned in the story as well. What pushes this into the Children of the Forest camp for me is basically His Grace was not the boy's true sire, that Aenys was some bastard born of one of Queen Rhaenys' many handsome favorites. the son of a singer or a mummer or a mime. Now, singer is another word for children of the forest. And whatever is happening with Aegon's conquest, which we still actually know very little about, I am 100% sure that it has to do with what's happening north of the Wall, with the children of the forest and possibly with the White Walkers. He can't have that big, giant, carved table of his without knowing the north is up there. But yeah, I'm convinced that Aegon's invasion definitely had to do with whatever magic is happening behind the scenes. The Children of the Forest stuff, the White Walkers, the Wargs. Because he was going straight for Harren the Black, who was also very, very mystical since he was the founder of Harrenhal. And Harrenhal plays a big part in all these histories. World of Ice and Fire and... Well, I mean, the books themselves, Harrenhal is mentioned throughout, but World of Ice and Fire and the other Maester prequels do a really good job of showing just how tied up Harrenhal was with the Targaryens. And actually, one really interesting thing... Well, there's a lot of interesting things about Harrenhal in here. But one thing I mentioned regarding Harrenhal and the mysteries of Aegon's conquest is that the conquest was very largely about taking down Harren the Black and his sons, whichever ones ruled at that time. And Harren the Black's brother actually ruled, was the head of the Night's Watch at this time too, though we don't know which of the three Harrens it was the brother of. But anyways, after Aegon took down Harrenhal with his dragons, he gave Harrenhal to House Cahoric. The reason they're called House Cahoric, I ridiculously didn't realize for a long time, is because they are actually from Qohor. The original founder was Aegon's Master-at-Arms, and he was from Qohor, which is the most mystical of all the free cities, by far. So that there is a pretty interesting... To pass it straight to someone so magical after already having been ruled by another very magical figure is definitely... It's definitely interesting because, well, it implies we really don't know what's going on with Aegon if he has a whole bunch of weird Qohor magic happening. Let's look that guy up, and while I'm at it, see why this window doesn't work. Oh, why won't you load, window? Refresh Safari. There we go. Qohor is weird enough that I'm actually going to bring up Qohor in the wiki just to read some stuff from it. They tell you a lot about it in the World of Ice and Fire as well. It's the easternmost of all the free cities in Essos. The free cities are called the free cities because they used to be part of the old Valyrian Empire, but went free when that place exploded. So yes, Maesters consider Qohor the most exotic of the free cities. The dark arts such as divination, blood magic, and necromancy are believed to be practiced in the city of sorcerers. The Qohoric believe in a dark god, the Black Goat of Qohor, who demands a daily blood sacrifice, such as calves, bullocks, and horses on regular days, or condemned criminals on holy days. In times of crisis, the nobles of the city are willing to sacrifice their own children in hopes that their god will defend the city. Followers of Rolar can be found in Qohor, because they're delightful. Yeah, so they worship the black goat, which is a death god. Ooh, let's bring up black goat. The man sacrifices is delightful. And yeah, when Vargo Hoat in the present day Westeros took over Harrenhal, he's also from Qohor, and he used the black goat as a symbol. House Qohoric just used a bunch of crazy skulls. Yeah, so Qohor is the weirdest and most mystical place, or I won't say weirdest because there's a lot of weird places. It's of the free cities, it's the most mystical, or has the most mysticism as part of its open daily routine. It's the furthest east, and it's the connection to Vaes Dothrak and to all those mountain cities further from there. So a lot of strangeness flows through here. So for Aegon the Conqueror to have a guy from Qohor as the head, as his man-at-arms, and then to give him the most magic place, or one of the most magic places in Westeros after knocking down Harren the Black, that definitely raises a whole lot of questions as to what he's doing. It's also worth noting that I believe it was Qohoric's grandson ends up being rebelled against by his people because of his love of the what was it called? First right, first night? The rule that lets lords go around and have sex with brides on their wedding night while their husbands stand outside like doofuses. He was so into that the people rose up against him. That's a very legitimate thing to rise up against a lord for. And the head of that rebellion actually named himself after Black Harren. He called himself Harren the Red. Or Red Harren. So that's pretty interesting and weird that super evil Black Harren would have freedom fighters raising up in his name, or at least in the name of his grandson, just a few generations later. And yeah, that this is the person who Aegon put in charge. He kept the right of first night going when he took over Westeros. He's not the one who shut that down. That was one of his grandkids. So possibly not as delightful and noble a fellow as we've been led to believe. God, there's so much cool stuff in this book. So, in addition to Aenys Targaryen possibly being and somehow related to the Children of the Forest, I feel like that would have been done as something Aegon would have known about, something he did with Rhaenys, because it talks a lot about her hanging out with mummers and mimes, and about how they actually liked each other, whereas Visenya, Aegon's other sister, was more about duty. And one thing that becomes apparent in this book is that I'm pretty sure Maegor the Cruel also is not the son of Aegon. And I don't think he has Children of the Forest as his parentage. I think I'm going to put Osmond Strong as the strongest category for his father. The first Hand of the King, after Oris Baratheon went to take Storm's End, Robert Strong became the new king, the new Hand of the King. And House Strong, who eventually takes over Harrenhal, is an incredibly mysterious house. What they're up to is pretty much my current biggest fascination in this series. They're a big part of the first Dance of Dragons with the Blacks versus the Greens, the Targaryen Civil War that caused so much damage. And one thing, well, if you want to know about how strong, go to Reddit, to the ASOIAF forum, and look up a user named Crowfood's Daughter. Crowfood's Daughter. Look up that person and look up what they have to say about how strong, and it will completely blow your mind. It would become its own video if I started rambling about that right now. So, well, one thing I'll say about it is, yeah, Osmond Strong was the first Hand of the King, or the second Hand of the King after Oris Baratheon. House Strong eventually took Harrenhal, and what is the name of Cersei's undead bodyguard? The crazy Frankenstein that was made out of Gregor Clegane? Robert Strong. So there's definitely something weird going on there. And yeah, go look up Crowfood's Daughter to read more of that. I'm definitely going to have to do a video sometime where I just ramble about all my theories about it. But yeah, for right now, I'm going to put Osmond Strong as the strongest possible candidate for the father of Maegor the Cruel. One, the way they describe it in here, Visenya Targaryen just pops up and says, "I'm pregnant." They make it seem very sudden, and it really seems like she and Aegon aren't in the same location anywhere near the time this is happening. Also, as little and spindly or scrawny, however they put it, as Aenys Targaryen was, Maegor is really big. He is really big. And I think this is the first part of some weird House Strong breeding program they have going. Because there's the Bastards of House Strong who were a big part of the Dance of Dragons. People thinking that those Targaryen kids were actually strong bastards. They had such strong features. And so you could definitely see a beginning of the Blacks versus the Greens starting in this story. With Cerise Hightower being Maegor's first choice of wife. And then things not going very well for them. And also these strange weirdos that Maegor hooks up after Cerise. Hooks up with. Oh, there's so much in this to talk about. It's all the little clues dropped in there. There is Maegor hits a real level of evil that to the point where George actually puts a 666 at the end. Is it 6 years and 66 days he reigned? So he really wants to maximize the evil. So pretty much everything House Strong is connected to does not seem to go well, or does not seem to have good intentions behind it. God, I gotta do a video about how strong. There is one little thing I came across that I have to mention here. I made a video not too long ago about grayscale and the influence grayscale is going to have in the next story and in the last season of the TV show. You should definitely check those videos out. Basically, I think there's going to be an army of stone men controlled by the Shrouded Lord in the books. And there may or may not be an army of stone men in the show in the final season, but I'm pretty sure Daenerys now has grayscale. Because of Jorah, because he's gross. And I found something in here that kind of, I don't know, confirmed it, but certainly hinted at it for me. It is the fate of the Vulture King. Where did that exact quote go? Well, basically, I lost the exact quote. But basically, the Vulture King, as as the Vulture King's rebellion against Aenys Targaryen, there's a lot of rebellions going on, and the way the Vulture King rebellion falls is basically the Vulture King ends up splitting his armies between Nightsong and Stonehelm, and basically losing all strength, followed by the Lightning Lord and Storm King coming in to take them down. And I think that's kind of a model of what's going to happen later in the books. Because there's a lot of clues like that dropped throughout the series. Lots and lots of foreshadowing. The names of houses and where they're located. Night Song makes you think of the Long Night. I've got a video about that coming out too. And Stonehelm kind of makes me think of the Army of the Stone Men. And so the Vulture King rebelling against the Dragon Lord, and who really has every reason to rebel against them. So we don't really have any idea if they're good or bad or not, but the Vulture King rebelling against the Dragon Lord, kind of an Azor Ahai figure who may actually be a synonym for the Night King. Trying to have a successful rebellion, but then ending up splitting its strength between the armies of Nightsong, like the Long Night, and Stonehelm, like the Stone Army. And then the Lightning Lord and the Storm King come in to take them down, and that has a whole lot of Azor Ahai / Storm King and Storm God references, or thematic connections, I should say. So I kind of feel like that little passage backs up what I think is going to happen in the next two books. So 85 years from now, when those books come out, I'll be sure to say, haha. Another great thing that was discussed, one of the things I really want to know about in this story was the construction of the Red Keep and how it related to the tunnels beneath it. If you take a look at descriptions after the Hand of the King burns down, and even descriptions before and after that, the tunnels and secret passages beneath the Red Keep are really strange. And when there's a passage where Jaime actually describes some of the passages as so small that only children can pass through, which to me is a pretty clear Children of the Forest reference. I think the fact that they're called Children of the Forest lets George R.R. Martin use a lot of double meanings throughout. Like when Varys says he serves the children, he's doing things for the children, and yeah, I think he means Children of the Forest and not human children. And in this case too, tunnels small enough only for children, I think they mean Children of the Forest, and I think those tunnels go really, really deep. the tunnels beneath the wall or beneath Winterfell or Castaway Rock. The tunnels beneath those weird weirwood trees. So I think there's a definite Children of the Forest connection, or well, I've been thinking there's a definite Children of the Forest connection. There's another kind of being that you need deep dark tunnels to get to that you hear about in the world of Ice and Fire. Weird, dark, old gods in strange island kingdoms that demand sacrifices. You know, kind of like the gods of Kohor demand sacrifices. So Children of the Forest, or old gods, is what I've been thinking is beneath those tunnels. And I'd been thinking that it must have been Osmond Strong who was the one in charge of building those tunnels, because I've been obsessed with House Strong for a long time and really wanted to learn about Strong and the tunnels in this story. But Strong, they actually specifically mention Strong dying, I think it said 2 years before they tear down the Aegon fort and start construction of the Red Keep. And it's actually Visenya Targaryen and the third Hand of the King, who is from House Haraway. House Haraway is another of the houses that take over Harrenhal. And they actually take it over during the course of this story, after the Kohoric Lord is castrated by the rebels. The Strongs are known for excessive weird sex too. That could be a connection. But yeah, the Haraway. I want to find the Lord's exact name. House Haraway. Use the color orange. Interesting. Actually, Kohoric had orange as well. Orange and black. What was the first guy's name? Lucas Haraway was the second Hand of the King, and he assisted Visenya Targaryen in building all of in building the Red Keep and what is beneath. So that was interesting to me, that Visenya is definitely in the know about a lot of stuff. I think she hooked up with Osmond Strong and became and that Osmond Strong became Maegor's father, which just in itself implies that she knows a lot about weird Harrenhal magic. And yeah, now here she is in charge of the weird tunnel system beneath the Red Keep, which is either connected to the Children of the Forest or, and I realize, weird, mysterious ancient gods, who may or may not demand sacrifices. Maegor the Cruel eventually takes over construction of the Red Keep and executes everybody involved, like Roose Bolton does after he has all those people reconstruct Winterfell. Interesting. I wonder if he did anything weird there. Anyways, I could Roose Bolton theorize forever as well. To me, the biggest, well, no, there's a lot of big bombs. Well, the most dramatic revelations for me are everything having to do with Tiana of the Towers, Maegor's third wife. Maegor's second wife is the daughter of Lord Haraway, Lord Lucas Haraway. Yeah. Alice Haraway. And when Maegor came back from Essos, where he went because he wouldn't divorce Alice Haraway, he had a woman with her named Tiana of the Towers. And just her entrance alone, I heard music while she was pulling into shore. I feel like her arrival is even more dramatic. She's described as raven-haired. Let's bring her up. Which, obviously, they're not going to mention ravens unless you want to have a magic connection. Yeah. So they say, people say she does this and does that. She is a full-on magician. Definitely does blood magic. Definitely does all kinds of weird magic. The Raven reference implies old gods magic. And her origins are very mysterious. They say she came from... basically that she came from a brothel, that she was a courtesan. But that doesn't mean anything because people from all over the world end up in some of these giant fancy courtesan houses. So really she could have come from anywhere. But when we first meet her, she's coming on a ship from Pentos with Elise or Alice? Elise Hightower. And the two of them definitely get along very, very well when they meet up. The first thing she does when she arrives is to bring Maegor back from the brink of death after engaging in Battle of the Seven, one of those 7 versus 7 battles that the Faith of the Seven love to have because they're 7 obsessed, like Two-Face with 7 faces. He won, but he got hurt really badly. Very clearly had some brain damage. Like, very, very clearly. And that alone could be the source of a lot of his increasing cruelty. Just hitting the head like that. But what happens after is Tiana comes and she does some magic for him. That is, it really the whole situation reminds me of what happened with Khal Drogo. And it actually has me thinking that Tiana did a more expert version of what that witch was trying to do, or said she was trying to do with Khal Drogo. What her actual motivations are actually up for debate. Mirri Maz-Duur, that was her name. It feels like she's doing the same kind of technique as Mirri Maz-Duur, but perhaps a more expert version or a different style. Because Maegor definitely does a lot more walking around than Khal Drogo does. A lot more talking. And yeah, she's definitely a very magical person. She actually, another thing about her, she becomes the Mistress of Whispers. And there are a lot of things about her description that remind me of Varys. She was referred to as a spider, for example, refers to herself as a spider. And she comes from Pentos, which is where Varys is from. And so I can't help but wonder, what origins did they share? Did they share any connections? Did they, I don't know, go to the same school for weirdos in Pentos? Did they learn the same magic tricks from the same magic techniques from the same style of magician? Because she definitely knows what's going on and actually probably uses a lot of warging to spy on people. There's a really good chance of that. And one thing she uses her warging powers for is to completely destroy Alice Haraway and House Haraway. Which was surprising because they seem to really, really get along. Like, really, really, really get along for the most part of the story. So it feels like a sudden shift. And I'm really curious about what the more detailed backstory is to all of this, because this is a really fascinating character, and whatever is happening with the transition of power from of Harrenhal from one house to another, and how it ties into Maegor the Cruel, and possible house strong breeding programs. There's so much weirdness going on here, and so all of a sudden, well, Lady Haraway has Maegor's first kid. He's obsessed with having kids and he can't, uh, which is kind of a bit of a twist for the whole House Strong, constantly screwing as many people as they can, constantly putting bastards everywhere they can. For them to get someone on the Iron Throne who can't make kids, I feel like that messes with their plan somewhat. Or does it? Whatever's going on with them. Anyways, this feels like a failed attempt at whatever's going on in The Princess and the Queen. And Maegor goes crazy from it. And actually, the phrase, what demon possessed him, is used at least once, which makes me wonder what Tiana exactly did to him. Anyways, yeah, she turns on Alice Haraway, and when Alice Haraway she has Maegor's first baby, and it's all deformed, like Rhaego is when Dany has her baby with Khal Drogo, and like the ones mentioned in The Princess and the Queen. There's something about the process of Targaryen dragon making that sometimes results in this. And whatever's going on with Targaryen dragon making is a very complicated puzzle. And all the other forms of magic, the skin changing and stuff, tie into it, definitely. Go and look at the details of Mirri Mazdur's ritual. Did something else come in and join Maegor in his body? Did something that weird happen? Or did she just do a healing spell and he was already a dick? But yeah, after this deformed baby is born, Tiana of the Tower informs Maegor that this happened because Alice Haraway had been cheating on her, and this really is it reminds me of what Cersei is doing to Marjorie, because it sounds like this sort of over-the-top, made-up things that didn't happen that people all want to believe for something because they're stupid. Like the orgies and orgies and orgies that Marjorie is said to have had. Tiana tells Maegor that Alice Haraway's father had been trying to get her pregnant by hooking her up with every single fertile man he could find. Highborn and lowborn, old and young. They made it sound all weird. But whether or not that's actually true, it's hard to say, because it sounds a lot like the thing that was extremely false when Cersei made it up. But at the same time, Alice's father is named Lucas, which sounds a lot like Lucamore the Lusty, the guy from House Strong who kept impregnating highborn ladies and had to be sent to the wall to be castrated, or was castrated and then sent to the wall. So so once again, there's really weird sex going on at Harrenhal. Really, really strange breeding practices. Something really weird is going on there. I don't know if it's just House Strong, or if other houses were trying to get in on this, or it's just the general vibe of Harrenhal. Maybe just have, like, a lot of plush carpets, a lot of, like, leopard prints everywhere, and it's just that kind of mood. But as a result of all this, House Haraway is completely wiped out. All of the people on the list are wiped out. everyone at Harrenhal is killed. All the Harroways are killed. And especially Alice Harroway, who is tortured very, 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 very badly by Tiana and Maegor. Eventually, all turns around and Maegor goes crazy. He's turning against everyone. Eventually, Tiana, after another terrible baby is born, Tiana is eventually killed by Maegor too, cruelly as well, and she actually confesses to causing the deformed births, which again would be kind of a Miri Mazdur connection. But again, it's hard to say for sure. Does that mean someone was doing it intentionally during The Princess and the Queen? Yeah, everything is weird with that story, including another strange connection. After House Harroway is wiped out, the house that takes over is House Towers. And I'd been really wondering about House Towers ever since the World of Ice and Fire came out. I'd always assumed that they were connected to House Hightower in some way, that they were some house descended from them. Youngest son of a youngest son goes off and forms a house. Because then there's also another House Towers in the north who are noted as an ancient house from a long time ago. The ancient Starks, the Kings of Winter, wiped out. And so I was always thinking that House Tower of Harrenhal that night must have been the way the night. Well, after all the Harrowers are killed, Maegor the Cruel decides that one of his knights should be allowed to take over Harrenhal, and he has them all fight in a big melee to the death. And the last one standing is the Knight of House Towers, and he gets Harrenhal. And I always thought he must have been some descendant of the House Towers who the Winter Kings put down, and that they must have been connected to the High Tower in some way back in ancient times. But here we see this weird connection to Tiana of the Towers. And I don't think she's connected. And Tiana of the Tower, singular. But I don't think her tower is Harrenhal. I don't think her tower is Highgarden. Is it? Could it be Highgarden? Could she be someone who was descended from Highgarden and... Or not Highgarden, Hightower. Someone descendant of Hightower who went to Pentos and is in some revenge mission against the original Hightowers? I don't know, but yeah, so I've been wondering what their whole connection was to the Hightower, but it seems it seems that House Tower of Harrenhal at least is a lot more connected to Tiana of the Tower, because the Tower Knight takes over Harrenhal after all the Harroways are wiped out because of Tiana of the Tower. Did she intentionally do this to get Walton Tower put in charge of Harrenhal? It seems unlikely they're connected to the High Tower because everything Harrenhal is against it. So what tower is Tiana of? As far as house towers go of Harrenhal, there are 5 towers in Harrenhal, but if they're already house tower before taking over Harrenhal, was that still their symbol? Because there's still towers, plural. And I'll go very much out on a limb here. Could the house towers be related to the 5 towers on the house tower symbol be actually related to the 5 forts way over in Yiti guarding against the demons of the Long Night? Could that be where that house comes from? That ancient house? I don't know, but what is... So, if anything, this significantly deepened the mystery of the 2 house towers, because now it's connected to Tiana of the Towers and all of her weird magic. which all we know about her magic is that she knows a lot of it. And another thing I'll say about her is they talk about her communing with rats. And that is pretty big because the other people in this story who are involved in weird rats are Lan the Clever, the weird person who took Casterly Rock from the Casterlys and started House Lannister, and the Rat Cook of the Night Fort. So the whole rat power thing is another level of weirdness, and rats may again be someone mistaking children of the forest for rats. Some maester not knowing what they're talking about. It's very possible in all these stories the rats are children of the forest, like the story of Gendel's children, the things in tunnels. Those sound like children of the forest running around. So whatever's going on her may have been at some weird Lan the Clever level. Or she just knew some of the tricks that he knew. God, this is such a good book. That is definitely me live streaming. That is my exact feeling right now. That is a picture of my soul reading this story. Yeah, I'm incredibly fascinated by Tiana of the Towers now. She seems like a pretty big puzzle piece being dropped in this story, which features a lot of puzzle pieces being dropped. Possible Children of the Forest heritage for Aenys Targaryen, who all the current kings actually descend from. A very significant chance that Maegor is a bastard, and I think Osmond Strong is most likely father. All kinds of weird stuff going on with the House Towers mystery, with Harrenhal in general, with Tiana of the Towers, and wrapping it up is the mystery of Maegor the Cruel's death, which we don't get any additional information on, really. It sounds like someone murdered him, but no one knows who, or nobody's talking about it. Or he was mystically murdered, maybe by a shadow monster or something. It's very much said that the Iron Throne itself killed him. And the Iron Throne itself, I think, is a magical object. If you look at the way Aegon constructed it, it really feels like a magic ritual. Like he's building an actual magical item there. So there's probably a lot of truth to the Iron Throne itself killed him. But the possibility that someone came in and slit his wrist and stabbed him seems pretty strong too. Suicide seems like the most unlikely possibility. That I believe at least. Because he was a psycho. And yeah, however he died, whoever killed him, excellent work. There are at least some cool kings who followed. But yeah, what is happening with Tiana the Tower, and what is happening with How Strong? Those are questions I had before this, and these are questions that are still going. Is it Children of the Forest those tunnels lead to beneath the Red Keep, or weird old gods who demand sacrifices? Or are they one and the same? What did Visenya know? What was she up to? What did Aegon and Rhaenys know? What was going on with the whole invasion? Why was the brother of Harren the Black, who created Harrenhal right above the God's Eye, why was he in charge of the Night's Watch? And what was House Stark up to during all this? All we know is that Torrhen knelt. One question: if the Starks love weirwood so much, why did Torrhen have so many weirwood arrows? Wouldn't you have to take down a bunch of weirwood trees to get those weirwood arrows? And yet, this book here, The Sons of the Dragon, the Starks are very, very absent. All the Civil War happening, all this, they are not featured very heavily. If at all. I think maybe Winterfell gets mentioned once? I don't think so, though. I don't remember it. Winterfell is very absent from this. which again just raises more mysterious questions. Game of Thrones is pretty much the greatest fantasy series ever because it's like reading 56 mystery novels at once, and this story raises even more mysteries, which is fantastic. I was like, only millions of mysteries. We need 6 million. Give us more mysteries. You call 5 billion a lot of mysteries? At least 6. Yeah, inject this story in my veins. Give it to me in a crack pipe. I need more Game of Thrones. These 41 new pages were fantastic. This was just excellent stuff. Thank you, George R. R. Martin, for writing the book, and I'm gonna keep researching this like an insane maniac looking over this Zapruder film. It's all about house towers. People think it's about the North versus the South. Is that it's about the humans versus the White Walkers. One of the biggest fights happening, even in the present in the books, is Hightower versus Harrenhal. Video game Vision Quest, I am out of here.